everyone. You are in the flow. Welcome to the Water Online Show. I am Travis Kennedy, publisher here at Water Online, and as always, joined by my esteemed partner, the chief editor of Water Online, Mr. Kevin Westerling. This is part 2 of a series that we're going to be doing all year long on the top topics. Try to say that 10 times fast.
Yeah.
The top 10 biggest topics facing the market for the year 2024. I'll try not to say that again as fast as I did, but today's topic is an exciting one and one that deserves a little bit more coverage than we have seen in the market, and we hope you find it educational and you get the information out of it that you would like. The topic for today is converting waste to energy, which covers a lot of ground. So we're talking efficiency. We're talking about saving money. We're talking about a lot of things that could help your plant and your workspace here, either in your town or in your municipality. And we're going to hopefully get a lot of good data. I'm sure we will, based on the guests that we have in store for you today. So Kevin.
Yes.
Waste to energy.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that was when we made the list of the topics that we were going to cover this year and which month. We sort of put the ones that were most pressing and ones we really wanted to get to at the top of the list. So earlier on in the year, and we're recording this here at the end of February.
Right.
So this is obviously top of mind.
Near the top. It has to be.
It really does. I mean, what are some of the highlights that you hope that we learned today?
Well, I mean, I think the industry is moving in this direction, but they might not be moving fast enough. And so it's kind of like, what are the incentives? Why should you be interested in it? How do you get there? And what kind of help is out there available for you?
That's help is a big thing, right? Because we are going this way as a country. There's a lot of municipalities out there that are going in this direction. And a lot of them, even the ones that are sort of on the border of trying to think, all right, should we take that first big step and go down this path, just want some more information on it. They just want to learn. They want some more data, because data is really going to drive the decision of not just when they do it, but how they do it.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, Kev, who do we have in store for our listeners today?
Well, we have someone who's going to help with all that. And her name is Anne-Louise Christensen. She is the senior commercial advisor of water at the Embassy of Denmark in the USA. So Anne-Louise is, our audience might hear Denmark and they're like, what does that have to do with me? Especially if you're US based.
Has to do a lot. We're about to find out.
We have a European audience, but we know that a lot of our users are here in the US. But Anne-Louise is going to talk about how the Embassy of Denmark is helping US utilities move towards waste to energy. So with that, why don't you share with the audience, Anne-Louise, what you do and your role there at the embassy?
So I'm part of the Water Technology Alliance. It's a Danish outreach program that provides specialized know-how on innovative water technology solutions. And then most of my colleagues, they're technical experts. They come from Danish water and wastewater utilities, and they're at our consulates in Houston, in Texas, in Chicago, in Illinois, and in Palo Alto in California. And they then have peer-to-peer exchanges with their American peers at American water and wastewater utilities. What I then do is that I have the policy knowledge exchange, and I lead our strategic and government partnerships, exchanging knowledge about what are the barriers, what are the drivers for these advances that we'd like to see in Denmark and in the world in general. We work for a better environment, a better climate, and Danish exports. And we're lucky that those are all aligned. So that's sort of what I do.
Well, that's it. I mean, doesn't sound like it's too much.
She even said Chicago like Chicago.
I caught that. Did anybody else in the audience catch that? That when she got to the city of Chicago, she said it like she's from Chicago.
That's great.
So fantastic, right? Way to Americanize the transition as to what we're going to learn today. I dig it. Nice work. So you mentioned, as you were introducing yourself and a lot of the responsibilities that you have, you mentioned barriers to this type of transition as it may exist in the United States. And I do want to get to that point and go over what some of those barriers are, what we're faced with. But I want to start with advantages, I mean, that's where everybody wants to start. What's the upside here? What are some of the advantages? So when we're talking about transitioning to biogas production from wastewater and making sure that's a choice really worth considering, which a lot of us in this room here agree that it is. Let's start with what are some of the economic advantages of that?
So the economic advantages depend on a range of factors, but some of the four most important factors are the quality of the wastewater sludge, the local energy costs, the cost reduction potential, and by minimizing sludge that goes to either landfills or land application, and the economic or regulatory drivers.
You mentioned cost reduction in there. I mean, that's a big one, right?
Which one?
Cost reduction. I don't want to.
Cost reduction. Yes.
Do
you want to stop there?
Yeah. So I want to stop there for just a second and well, actually more than a second, a few moments, because that is the main driver of a lot of decisions as they're made here in the United States and perhaps globally. You might be able to add more color to that. I'm actually probably pretty certain you could. So when it comes to cost reduction, could you go into that a little deeper as to how specifically that leads to overhead and cost reduction?
Definitely. Many places there is a increasingly limited space in landfills, and it costs the utilities money to send their sludge to landfills and for land application. So it's a benefit for them to use anaerobic digesters to reduce the sludge amount and that they sent there. That's one cost reduction opportunity. Then for wastewater utilities, one of the big operational costs is electricity.
Indeed.
And it requires heat to heat up the digesters if they have digesters. And there's an opportunity to reduce both of those costs by producing biogas on the wastewater treatment plant. And then another big opportunity for cost savings is that if the wastewater treatment plant has in-house biogas production, so to speak, then they can reduce their cost at times of peak demand in the electricity grid where electricity prices can be really high. So that's of interest to the wastewater utilities. Then one thing is producing energy. Another thing is saving energy. And there are great opportunities to save energy at a lot of the wastewater treatment plants. There can be a potential to save as much as 30 to 50% of the energy at the wastewater treatment plants by having energy efficient equipment and controls. And the controls are really the major factor here that can reduce the energy consumption at the wastewater treatment plants. And that the energy efficiency is important if the wastewater treatment plants want to get the most out of their biogas production.
So that adds up to what we're finding. So Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we're talking with municipalities here in the States and what they spend money on, what they spend the most money on. Mm-hmm. I mean, the most expensive line item that most municipalities have has to do with electricity. And I mean,
it's energy. And I'm pretty sure close behind that is sludge removal is a major cost for them as well.
Right. So we're taking two major cost centers and not just eliminating them, but we're making them a more efficient process.
Exactly.
Which saves money, which is good. And that also relates to energy security. So, Anne-Louise, could you just talk a little bit more about energy security as being a driving factor for this type of transition?
Yes. The wastewater treatment plants have the benefit of energy security in cases of power outages if they have on-plant production of biogas. So that's of interest. And then for the greater community, it can reduce the pressure on the grid, which is a benefit to the community, also as it reduces the risk of power outages. So that's a benefit.
Power outages have become a thing here in the States over the past, I don't know, Kevin, how long? 2 years? Like we've seen a series of one storm after another, one part of the country after another, where we're just facing widespread power outages.
Yeah.
Right. And I know that it's top of mind for a lot of municipalities here in the United States about like, all right, so what do we do in these types of emergency situations? Power outages cause a lot of issues, not just for the homeowner or for the end user of your water systems, but also the municipality itself, the plant, the distribution systems, all of that. So being able to survive a power outage is definitely a key selling point and benefit of this type of transition. So definitely all three of the things that we talked about. If you're a municipality out there, you're going to want to think these things through and say, well, that's upside, upside, upside. It just keeps adding to the argument of, and the point of, this is really, truly something that you should be looking into for your local municipality and what it is you're in charge of.
Yeah, not only yours, but I mean, you're helping your neighbor out by taking pressure off the grid.
Without a doubt, right?
That's what's causing a lot of these things. Just the grids can't handle it.
Yeah.
But so we did talk a lot about the benefits, and you can see where the money savings kind of are, but you can't install anything like this without some sort of CapEx, right? So it's going to cost some amount of money to put these systems in place. And I don't necessarily know where their money's coming from, maybe some sort of federal program, but could you speak to maybe the anticipated ROI on installing these systems and maybe how Denmark is doing it? Because they preceded us with a lot of these technologies, right? And so what does the success look like over there?
Let's talk money.
Let's talk money. Well, so I can't speak to the exact ROI because that will depend on where it's produced. It is so that the thicker wastewater is better. If there is more organic waste in the wastewater, less water in, then it's more efficient to produce biogas. So in places where you're water efficient, then it's more efficient to produce biogas, so to speak. And then and we were aware that the business case is better in Denmark because we have a very low water use in Denmark, for example. And we don't use as frequently, we don't use UV technology at the wastewater plants, which is very energy intensive. Mm-hmm. So there are some factors there that means that it's often a better business case in Denmark. Then if you talk about, you mentioned the economic and regulatory incentives, then we also tend to have more of those in Denmark. In the US, there are federal incentives. The Inflation Reduction Act expanded the incentives to make biogas in the US.
Did they really? Wow. Yeah. I didn't know that. I mean, I've spent so much time focused on that part of
inflation.
Yeah, right. That type of stuff, but also how it relates to the infrastructure, right? And not necessarily some of the ancillary things that go into the entire process. That's very interesting. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just thought that was no. That is now available. There are funds available for this transition. If you go out and look for them, they are there. Which is good to know. I'm sorry, Anne-Louise, go ahead.
No. And like in states, like, for example, in California, there's a law, SB 1383, that requires the counties to redirect organic waste away from landfills. That also gives an incentive to produce biogas. And there are many places in the US where there is a use of anaerobic digesters already, but the gas is flared rather than used efficiently. So there are many places where it makes sense in the US. Then in Denmark, we have a range of regulations. We have economic benchmarking and efficiency requirements for the water sector. We have performance benchmarking. So we compare how much energy the wastewater utilities consume and produce, for example. And we have fees on nutrient discharges. We have taxes on septic tanks, on wastewater, and on water. And we also have some subsidies related to biogas. So we have broad pet flora of incentives in Denmark. And some of these are here in the US, just at different degrees, depending on where you are in the US.
So it's geographical in nature is what you're saying, right?
Yeah. And the same with the quality of the sludge, right?
Yeah, without a doubt. So I want to talk, that leads me into a thought around potential. So having the experience in Denmark, but trying to move that experience over to here to the United States, in your opinion, what do you see as the potential for this happening in the United States? So what factors are involved in identifying and measuring what the potential is? And how do you see this moving forward in the United States over the next, say, 12 to 18 months?
Ooh, 12 to 18 months. In Denmark, we say that
24 months, 36 months, as far out as you want to go. I just tried to put some kind of
say years for a second.
All right, next 12 years. No,
I appreciate that. In Denmark, we say that predictions are hard to make, especially about the future.
Yeah.
But I can say that I think that there is a good potential in the US to expand this, both because of the amount of wastewater treatment plants that already have anaerobic digestion but flare it. According to the US EPA in 2013, it was wastewater treatment plants accounting for 48% of the wastewater load in the US that had anaerobic digesters. So there's a great potential. And then I think that there's a great potential to become more energy efficient. And together, if both the wastewater treatment plants will be more energy efficient and they produce biogas, then there's potential to produce up to 12% of the national energy, according to the US EPA. So let me just check that that's the US EPA, but I believe so.
No worries.
Yes. So I think that there's a great potential, and the US DOE says that 25 to 40% of the operational costs at a wastewater treatment plant is electricity.
Right.
So I think, so I think that there are many opportunities. If we speak a little bit about how that has been done in Denmark, then there has been a great focus on sensors and controls and real-time measurements throughout all parts of the wastewater life cycle. So in Denmark, the way we think of it is what you measure, you can manage. And the wastewater treatment is only as strong as its weakest link. We have a strong focus on good use of data and maintenance as a prerequisite to achieve all the benefits we can in making an efficient wastewater treatment and biogas production. And the use of sensors, controls, and digital models is central to this. It can help the wastewater treatment plants optimize their processes and improve their data management, their asset management, So by using controls, sensors, and digital models, the wastewater treatment plants use real-time data to optimize their processes and improve their asset management and ensure timely investments in their equipment, making sure that they invest in the equipment when it needs to be replaced, so that it's not over-invested, but also not, replace that at a time where it could be used for more time.
I mean, I really like what you put in. Sorry to stop you, but I just wanted to interject that Kevin and I just did an episode of In the Flow, the Water Online show, around digital twin. And we talked a lot about the fact that as it relates to measurement and management and how those two things are enmeshed together, especially where we are now as a market, even here in the United States, where digital transformation is becoming the thing. Almost every municipality is at least beginning to go down this path. So, that point of the fact that this is tied directly to digital transformation, and as you take those small baby steps to go down that path, that this is an important thing to consider to go along with it. The other thing that you noted there that I didn't want to blow past is, and Kevin and I noted this a little earlier in the show, is the fact that if you're a municipality out there in the United States and you can look at your heaviest line item in terms of expense and reduce it by, I don't know what percentage, it could be 30, 40, 50%. That should be the first thing you look at. If I was working at a municipality and I was looking at all my line items and cost centers, the first thing I'd look at is what's costing me the most money. And then what are the ways that we can decrease that amount? And the fact that this type of technology is something that can help them do that and do it to an impactful amount is definitely worth the time to look at, investigate, and ask questions about. And that's part of the reason why you're here. That's a big reason why you're here, because you're the expert on it. So we appreciate that feedback.
Yeah, it's not always so that there is a gain for the wastewater treatment plant, but there's always a gain for the society at large. So sometimes it's also about thinking outside of our silos and say, for our community, this is definitely a good thing to do.
A good point to make. Good point to make. So yes, there are benefits from a cost standpoint, and those do exist, and they can be impactful in some instances. But also thinking beyond the borders of your town, beyond the borders of your city, and thinking about the community as a whole that you're in charge of, but also, as Kevin alluded to earlier in the show, the communities that are right next to you and right next to them, and sort of we're all in this together. We have a very important job in this market. This is water, and wastewater is very much a life science. So a lot of the points that you just brought up, very important for us to consider and think about as we decide whether or not to go down this path.
Yeah. Sorry, start again there. Totally agree. And some of the points you made, Anne-Louise, throughout this are, I mean, you laid out the case for why municipalities should invest in waste to energy. But we kind of talked around some of the technologies and didn't really dive into them. And we're not going to dive into them here per se. No, that's not your cup of tea necessarily. But we have a lot of listeners who are going to go and they're going to research these topics afterwards. So if you could just maybe name check a couple of the technologies that are being used and maybe even look at some of the more innovative ones that are being developed right now so that our listeners can go ahead and research that themselves, maybe.
Yeah. So some of the technologies that we're looking into expanding in Denmark is upgrading biogas to renewable natural gas, both because it gives an opportunity to get higher prices for the gas production, and it gives an opportunity to use it in hard to abate sectors, such as the thermal industries and the heavy duty fuel that we need. Other things that we're looking into is increasingly recovering nitrogen and phosphorus from wastewater. And right now it's possible, but hopefully it'll become cheaper in the future. And the same goes for waste to carbon products, such as biopolymer and single cell proteins that are currently very expensive. But they're sustainable, and hopefully they'll be more cost efficient in the future.
So a lot of the information we learned today has to do with how Denmark has achieved this type of environmentally friendly, potentially cost-saving, innovative technology that's going to benefit pretty much everybody that comes across it and has anything to do with it. So it was important for us here on the Water Online show and in the Flow specifically to bring these types of innovations to light here in the United States. So we have a full understanding as a nation and as a state, as a local municipality, as to how some of these innovative technologies and solutions can not just help you, but help your municipality, help your end users and your customers, and help those around you as a community. So if you have any questions, please feel free to submit them here to Water Online, and Kevin will make sure that we get them over to Anne-Louise. But beyond that, that was fantastic. Anne-Louise, thank you very much for coming on the show here today. We learned a lot. This is truly something that we are looking forward to seeing its evolution over the next 12 months, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, as we go through this process and this transition here in the United States. So the type of guidance you provided today was very helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you. I appreciate you, Travis. Hopefully the U.S. can catch up with Denmark, and I'm sure that
We're going to catch them.
Yeah,
We're going to catch them.
we need to. I'm sure you can help people out with that. So why don't you let the audience know how they can learn more information and get a hold of you?
Yeah, please contact me on anlchr@um.dk, or contact my colleagues Ulrich and Karen Marie, who are our technical wastewater experts. Is placed in Chicago, and Karen Marie's in California, and they'll be really happy to talk with you, and they know the nuts and the bolts. So they're ready to kick tires.
And don't forget, for all of your informational needs around water and wastewater, please visit Water Online. We would love to see you there. And for all of us, for Kevin, myself, our production team, and for Anne-Louise, thank you for joining us here today, and we will see you next time.